Hello, my name is Vyara Bridgeman. I'm a BodyTalk practitioner and a personal success coach, something I've been doing for well over 15 years now. Today, you're here with me because I have something to teach you about financial success specifically. So, this program, the Money Master program that you have come to experience, essentially consists of three modules, and each module is dedicated to an important step of your journey towards financial success. So let's see what the first module has to teach you. This is what I've prepared for today. Today being your first step towards your financial success. Today is all about figuring out where you are exactly. The next module, module two, will be about figuring out where you want to be, frankly, where you need to be financially. And the third module will be about what you need to do to get from here to where you need to be. But first, you need to figure out where you are. You may think you know where you are. Most people don't. Most people have no idea where they are. That's why they feel lost. But if you don't know where you are, how can you get from here to where you want to be, right? So today we are going to delve into where you are exactly and why you are here. It is really important to understand why you are where you are, because if you don't know what got you here, you wouldn't know how to go about changing things, right? Because you're not going to know what exactly you need to change to get from here to where you want to be. So it's all about facing the truth, right? Today, it's all about facing the truth, facing reality, and the truth. When I say facing the truth, I mean facing the truth regarding your fears around lack of money, regarding your fears around financial success, around failure. Okay. Now, importantly, I'm just going to give you a preview here straight away. Importantly, the fear that most people have is not as simple as, oh, I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough money. That's too general, not specific enough, and it doesn't tell you anything about where you are, let alone why you are here. So instead of something as general as, well, I'm afraid I might not have enough money, right, or any money, instead of this, usually we're afraid of something like, well, I'm afraid I may not have where to live. I may not have what to eat. I'm afraid my children may not get the education that we want for them, something like that, right? So we are going to go into a lot of detail regarding your fears. That's number one task for today. Number two, we're going to look at what you have to believe about yourself, about the world in general, and of course, about the financial world specifically to have the fears that you do. All right. So, for instance, again, I'm just giving you a taster here, like a teaser. For instance, if you are afraid you may lose your job, you may believe that you're not good enough or that you cannot trust authority or that you cannot trust anyone for that matter. And that's a serious belief to have, right? And it's important to know that you have it if you do have it, because then you can do something to deal with it appropriately. And as a result, start to move out of where you are towards where you need to be. Okay? So, number three, the question then arises, well, if I believe this, or if I believe that, or I don't believe this, right? Where do beliefs come from? It's a really important question. And here we're going to look at the argument nature versus nurture. And I'm going to um, give you an overview, a brief overview over the importance of nature and the role that nature plays in the beliefs that actually start to drive our lives. Right? So, again, I'm giving you a brief preview of what we're going to be uh, working with today regarding that argument nature versus nurture and the importance of nature specifically. So, nature has programmed us, right? All of us to have three biological instincts. All of us have three biological instincts by nature. They are wired. Yeah, the autonomic nervous system is programmed to have those instincts. These are the self preservation instinct, the sexual instinct, and the social instinct. One of those instincts becomes dominant. Yeah, so every person has one of those instincts dominant. Depending on what instinct is dominant in you, you're going to have certain fears and beliefs accordingly. So these are, in a way, programmed or predestined in a way. Yeah. So we're going to look at um, those three dominant instincts. I'm going to help you identify your dominant instinct because that's going to raise your awareness about why you're stuck, why you have the fears that prevent you from moving from here to where you want to be, why you believe the things you do, and what you can do about that, which is the most important thing, actually. All right. And lastly, we're going to look at your ways of using money to control life based on your dominant instinct. Money is a means, it's not an end. Money is always a means, yeah? And for most of us, money is a means to control life. To control life, basically, means to cope with your fears. Because control is a coping mechanism. So we'll talk a lot more about that when we get there. Again, I'm just giving you a preview of what today's session is going to be about. So you are about to find out a lot of things about yourself. You are going to really face the truth, and a lot of light bulbs are going to start flashing, and you're going to be, wow, that's why I do these things. That's why I have those habits. That's why I have those fears. That's why I'm stuck. And this is where I'm stuck. Yeah, this is precisely where I'm stuck. So you're going to be able to identify where exactly you are and why. And that's the first step on your journey to financial success. Because again, I'm going to repeat this several times, but this is really important to get. Yeah. You cannot get to where you want to be if you don't know where you are, if you're lost. Yeah. So figuring out where you are is your first step on your journey to financial success. Right. So let's start with your money fears. Now, I don't want you to list them off the top of your head because that's not as effective and it's not as productive. For the purposes of you figuring out your real money fears, we're going to go through a process of visualization because visualization allows for the mind to relax and you have a more direct access to the subconscious. And actually, it's the subconscious that runs your life. Yeah, it's not your conscious decisions, it's not your conscious awareness that runs the show. Unfortunately, it's our subconscious that runs the show. Okay, so visualization gives us this more direct access to what's going on that subconscious, semi conscious, unconscious level. And the more information we have about the programming um, that's running the show on that level, the more tools we have to deal with it, the more equipped we are to actually change something about it. All right. So now, if you're driving, you cannot do what I'm about to guide you through because you need to find a quiet place where you can either lie down and relax yourself completely. You can also be sitting, but the point is you need to be super relaxed. All right. So go ahead, find that spot where you feel, you're not going to be disturbed. There isn't any external stimulation in terms of noises. There are no children around running and, screaming or anything like that. Find a quiet spot and go ahead, close your eyes. And for a few seconds, just focus on your breathing. Make sure you're breathing deeply, evenly. Take a deep inhalation. At the top of the inhale, squeeze all of your muscles. And on the exhalation, just relax, release any tension anywhere in your body. Allow for the eyes to sink deeper and deeper into the eye sockets. Keep breathing. On each exhalation, keep relaxing your body more and more. Keep letting go. Keeping your eyes closed. Imagine yourself all of a sudden extremely poor. Imagine your worst fears regarding lack of money are now manifested somehow. Keep your eyes closed, keep visualizing, keep imagining yourself extremely poor. You've hit the financial bottom and your worst money nightmares have manifested. What is happening exactly? Where are you? What are you doing? What are you saying? What can you not afford? If your worst financial nightmares were to manifest, what could you not afford? Take a few more minutes and continue to visualize yourself super poor and continue to visualize your personal worst money fears manifesting. What do you picture? What would happen if you were to lose everything? The things you imagine need to be some things you're really afraid of. Yeah? They feel real to you. What are you afraid of? Are you out on the street, cold and hungry, begging? Or perhaps you're alone without any friends, your family has abandoned you. Are your children hungry? Or maybe they're sick now that you have no money left? You're poor all of a sudden. Continue to picture yourself super poor and continue to picture what may happen if you were to lose all the money and possessions and you became super poor. What are your personal worst nightmares when it comes to lack of money? Would you have to downsize your house? Trade your car for a cheaper one? Or would you need to send your children to a public school? Would you need to borrow more money to pay your mortgage? Or would you lose your house altogether? Would you need to cut down on luxury items? Would you need to move back in with your parents? Or would you need to endure criticism from your parents, children, spouse? Are you mostly afraid of the I told you so reaction? Would you suffer humiliation, shame, rejection? Would you need to give up your hobby so you can eat? Continue to visualize your personal poverty scenario, the one that you're personally most afraid of. What would happen if you became poor? What exactly is your money nightmare? You need to be really specific. And once you have a crystal clear picture of your personal worst case scenario regarding lack of money, take a deep inhalation, exhale, focus a little bit on your breathing and start to bring your awareness back into your body. Wiggle your toes, move your fingers, stretch your whole body, and you can open your eyes. Right. So now what I want you to do is pause the video, grab a pen and paper, and write down what you pictured throughout this visualization process. Write down your personal worst case poverty scenario. And once you're ready, you can come back to the video and we're going to do another visualization exercise. Okay, so I'm assuming you have paused the video, you have written down what you pictured during the first visualization process, and now we are going to do another visualization exercise. So again, you cannot be driving through this process. You need to find a relaxing spot, somewhere you can lie down undisturbed, or somewhere you can be sitting down, but still you can afford to relax, and go into that deep state of um, uh, relaxation. Yeah. So go ahead, find that spot, and again, close your eyes. Take a deep inhalation. On the exhale, release any tension anywhere in your body. Relax your muscles. Relax your mind. Let go of any thoughts. One more deep inhale. At the top of the inhalation, squeeze all of your body, and then on the exhale, just release, relax, allow yourself to let go further and further. Keeping your eyes closed, keep breathing nicely, evenly. And now visualize your worst poverty nightmares, everything you wrote down on that piece of paper just a while ago. Visualize, picture that scenario again. Picture yourself having hit the financial bottom and your worst poverty nightmares have come true. Picture that. Keep your eyes closed, keep visualizing, and now we are going to explore the reasons for you hitting the financial bottom. What do you picture happened so that your worst nightmares regarding lack of money manifested? How did you get there? How did you get to experience this extreme poverty? Keep visualizing and keep asking yourself, what are the likely reasons that could lead you to your financial demise? What needs to happen for you to actually hit the financial bottom? What do you imagine needs to happen? How did you hit the financial bottom? Did your partner leave you? Did your parents disown you? Did you get fired? Did you have a fallout with someone? Or someone else's actions, maybe a business partner or a loved partner, led to your financial demise? The one you picture might happen, yeah? Did someone else get promoted over you at work? Did you get reckless with your spendings, perhaps feeding your addictions or enabling someone else's addictions? Did you live beyond your means, keeping up with the Joneses? Or did you just get lazy and, I don't know, overlooked some problems that could have been easily taken care of earlier on? Did a war break out? Did a natural disaster happen or the market crashed? Or did you have an accident, got paralyzed or bedridden, and you had to stop working? Keep visualizing. What would need to happen for you to actually hit the financial bottom? What would need to happen for your worst poverty nightmares to manifest? What are you most afraid of? What are you scared that might happen that will compromise you financially? keep getting clear on what exactly you're scared might happen. And again, once you're clear on your scenario, on your likely reasons for your worst money nightmares manifesting, you can again start to bring your awareness back into your body, wiggle your toes, move your fingers, stretch, and open your eyes. Welcome back. Now, I don't know what you personally pictured. Regardless, though, what you pictured is telling of where you are and why you are here. So I want to um, look at several scenarios that you could have pictured. Maybe you pictured one of them, maybe yours is slightly different, but I want to dissect quite a few of those scenarios and explain what they are an indication of, because that's how you start to get the picture about yourself, and that's how you start to understand and to realize what what your visualized fears and scenarios mean actually. Okay, so for those of you who imagined um, that a partner left or a parent abandoned you, and that was what led to your financial nightmares manifesting. Yeah. You have perhaps fear of abandonment, or fear of rejection, or fear of being alone. Now, if you're sticking your hand and raising your hand and go, wait a second, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of being alone, what's that got to do with money? Everything. Everything. Why? Because how you do anything is how you do everything. All right? How you do anything is how you do everything. So I am going to talk specifically about money uh, shortly. Yeah. But it's usually a more generalized fear that's ruling your life, both in the area of finances and as well as everywhere else, basically. Yeah, how you do finances is how you do relationships, how you do learning, or how you don't do learning, how you do friendships, everything. Yeah, so let's go back to um, the scenarios you could have pictured, right, as likely reason for your imagined financial demise. Yeah, and then I'm going to talk about money specifically. Okay, so for those of you who pictured that you got fired and that was the likely reason for you becoming extremely poor, yeah, you must have fear of authority or some kind of survival fear. So remember that, and then we'll talk about money and those fears and how they relate. Okay. Now, if you had a fallout with someone in your, throughout your visualization, or someone else's actions led to your financial failure, okay, you may have fear of cooperation or fear of trusting. All right. For those of you who pictured getting, someone else getting promoted over you at work, yeah, that's an indication of some sort of self doubt. All right. Fear of failure. Fear of failure. Okay. For those of you out there who pictured that your reckless behavior regarding spendings, like overspending, okay, is what could be the likely reason for your poverty. Yeah. Especially if you pictured, okay, I'm overspending money, feeding my addictions or enabling someone else's addictions. And I'm not only talking about a drug addiction. Yeah, we're addicted to all sorts of things, not only drugs. Yeah. So anyhow, if you imagine that you spending money feeding your addictions or someone else's addictions is a likely reason for you to to experience that complete financial failure that you're afraid you might potentially experience, that's an indication of fear of rejection or fear of pain. Now, when I say pain, I don't necessarily mean only physical pain. I mean anything that you perceive as painful, including metaphorically. So, some people perceive uh, decision making as extremely painful. Learning can be pain for others. All right, taking responsibility is also something that's often perceived as pain. Okay, taking action can also be perceived as something really painful. So when I say fear of pain, you can read any sort of pain there. Okay. Now, spending money to keep up with the Joneses. All right. If you picture that as a likely reason for your financial failure, your imagined financial failure, the one you're most afraid of, yeah, that's an indication of vanity, inferiority complex, and potentially fear of authority. All right. If you pictured, your laziness, procrastination is what led you to your personal imagined financial failure, that's an indication of fear of decision making, fear of taking action, fear of failure. Well, in a nutshell, fear of pain. This is what I mean by fear of pain. Yeah. Now, if you imagined something like a natural disaster of a huge magnitude is a likely reason for your imagined financial failure, okay, or like a war breaking out, or an earthquake, the market crashed and it was all doom and gloom, or you had an accident and you were bedridden, that's sometimes an indication of we do have fear of adversity. That's superficially what it looks like, right? But if you imagine something of that big of a magnitude, um, it can be an indication of paranoia. Paranoia is nothing else but extreme fear. Okay, extreme fear that's paralyzing. That's paralyzing. Okay. Now, of course, natural disasters do happen. The markets do crash, and we do suffer accidents every now and then. So, I'm not suggesting you shouldn't be taking such possibilities into account. But here is the difference between taking something into account and fearing the same thing. When I take it into account, then I might prepare for the worst. And preparing for the worst means I take action. I feel empowered to take action. I do take into account the fact that wars do break out, natural disasters do happen all the time, accidents happen as well, right? So I am preparing for the worst by taking action, taking out insurance, or whatever the case might be. But fearing the worst and not taking action, right? Keeps me in that state of, extreme paralysis and paranoia. All right. So, of course, you have to take into account those things and you have to prepare for the worst, but don't fear the worst, because when you spend too much time in that fear, it turns into paranoia and it's very paralyzing and you get stuck and lost. All right. So, how you overcome fear and take action is something we're going to be talking a lot more about um, in due course. Right. So, as I already mentioned, those fears I'm talking about: fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, fear of authority, fear of authenticity. All right. They're not necessarily money specific. I already said that and I'm repeating myself, but this is important to understand. Okay. Um, they're just general fears about the world, right? But they inform your financial behavior. For instance, fear of rejection, yeah, may not be superficially directly related to finances, right? But you may get yourself into all sorts of financial problems because of that fear of rejection. You may be enabling, I already mentioned a few of those. You may be enabling someone else's addictions. All right. You may be using money to buy love or whatever. Yeah. And we're gonna go into more details about that again in due course. Okay. For now though, I want you to again pause the video and identify your personal fear based on what you pictured through your visualization exercise or through your personal visualization process. Okay? Pause the video and write down your personal fear based on what you pictured as a worst case scenario and what you pictured as a plausible possible cause for your worst case money scenario, money nightmare manifesting. All right. So I am assuming that you have done what I've just asked of you. You have written down, you have figured out your fear with the knowledge that you already have, and you have written it down. If you couldn't figure out your main fear, we are going to go through a lot more exercises. And by the end of this module, you will be able to figure out your fear really nicely. Like you'll be clear on that. Okay. Now, fears are linked with beliefs. I already mentioned that in the beginning, so we are now on to the second part of this module. We talked about fears, and I promised, that we are also going to go on and talk about beliefs. So now, what do you have to believe about yourself, about the world at large, and about the financial world specifically to have the fears that you do? Yeah. So now I want you to find out what what your belief about money is in particular, and I'm going to give you some examples here. Okay. For instance, a lot of people believe that money is their security. Yeah, so money is my security, right? Others believe that money buys them health. Some people believe that money equals food. Okay, money buys me food. Money gives me pleasure is another belief. Money gives me status. Money gets me appreciation. Money gets me friends. Money buys me love. All right. So which ones of these are true for you specifically? Because first, some people are going to resonate more with money is security, money is health, money is food. Others are going to resonate more with money is status, money is acceptance, money is friends, love, all right, appreciation, admiration, success. Yeah. So, what is true for you? Remember, today is all about facing the truth because the truth will set you free. However, first, it will make you miserable. For instance, if you realize that for you, money buys you love, that's upsetting at first. Like if I were to realize that money buys me love, and that's what I do with money to cope with life and with my fears, that might make me miserable for a few seconds there, right? But again, facing the truth holds the key to liberation. It holds the key to success. So the truth will set you free, and your job is to figure out what is true for you. What do you believe about money? What does money give you? That's another way of putting it. Okay? Now, you may or may not have the answer already. So, in case you don't have the answer yet, pause the video and think about it. Think about it and write down money gives me fill in the blanks. Yeah. And assuming you've done that, whether you were able to figure it out yet or not, don't worry. As I already said, I will keep giving you more and more information. So by the end of this module, you are going to be very, very clear on where exactly you are and why and what exactly you believe about money. Okay, so if you don't have your answers yet, don't worry. Here is some further information about what I'm talking about, so that might help you if you haven't got if you haven't arrived at your personal truth yet. So suppose you equate money with security. Money is my security. Okay, that is always linked to survival fear. And the survival fear is always linked to a belief that I am not safe, that the world is not safe. If you believe that money buys you health, this is also a survival fear, which is also linked to the belief that you're not safe and or the world is not safe. Likewise, if you believe that money buys you food, again, you have survival fear. And you believe that you're not safe and that the world is not a safe place. All right? Some people believe that money gives them pleasure. If you're one of them, if you believe that money gives you pleasure, you have fear of pain, and you believe that the world is painful and or that the world is not a safe place. If you believe that money gives you first and foremost status, then you suffer from a fear of rejection and you believe that you're not good enough. If you believe that money gets you appreciation, admiration, respect, approval, then you have fear of authenticity. and you believe that you're not good enough. If you believe that money gets you friends, you have fear of rejection and or fear of being alone, and again you believe that you're not good enough, perhaps even that you're not lovable. Which brings me to the next point. If you believe that money gets you love, again, you have fear of rejection, and you most certainly believe that you're not lovable, and perhaps you also believe that love should be earned. Now, notice that, oh, what I'm just putting on here, they're only suggestions, and again, you need to arrive at your own truth. But note also one other very important thing. Note that most of the fears we're talking about here come down to a few basic beliefs. They come down to a belief about lack of safety, lack of trust, or lack of love. Lack of safety, lack of trust, or lack of love. These are the beliefs that are at the bottom of it all, by and large. All right? Now, again, you're going to have to pause the video, and there are two exercises you need to work through this time around. Very simply, firstly, I want you to write down I want you to write down the belief about the world and or yourself that you think drives your worst money fear. For instance, I believe I'm not safe and I won't survive without money. In other words, money gives me safety. Okay? Or another scenario. I believe I'm not good enough and I'll be alone without money. In other words, money gives me the approval of the others and my own approval. All right. So write down the belief about yourself and the world and what fear that's linked to. And that should be specifically for you, your own truth. That's the first thing you need to do. And the second thing you need to do is filling in the blanks. Without money, I am dot dot dot. Write down who you are without money. So without money, I am, I don't know, miserable, sick, lonely, unattractive, bored, uneducated, underappreciated, unsuccessful, nothing. Some people might feel like nothing. They're nothing without money. Write down your personal truth. Yeah. And once you're ready, you can come back and we are going to continue. So now we talked about fears and we talked about beliefs that drive the fears. The question that begs an answer right now is, well, why do I need to know my fears? What's that giving me in terms of financial success? Well, I already said that knowing your fears is part of facing the truth regarding where you are and why you are here. All right. And that's a necessary requirement for you to move from here to where you want to be. But that's a little bit too general. So I want to be a lot more specific about what exactly I mean by that. And we'll do this right now. So the question again, Why do I need to know my fears? What does it matter? Yeah. Why do I need to know my fears? Because your fears are the cause for your bad money habits. You can write this down. Bad money habits are caused by your fears. And write this down as well. Bad money habits help you cope with your fears. Okay? Bad money habits help you cope with your fears. So think about this for a second. Think about this for a long time, actually, because this is the key to success, or one of the main keys to success. If you didn't have any fears, you would not have any bad money habits. And if you didn't have bad money habits, you wouldn't have money problems. Now, if you're raising your hand now and going, "Whoa, I don't have bad money habits and I don't have money problems," then my next question is, why are you here? Okay, why are you here? And I don't care what your answer is. If you're here, you're not happy with where you are and you want to move from here to where you want to be, to where you think you need to be, right? And that's an indication that there is a gap and that there is some, at least one bad money habit that causes your money financial dissatisfaction. Okay, so don't take it too personally if you don't identify with bad money habits and money problems. I'm going to elaborate on that shortly. So you're going to get very soon the idea around what a bad money habit is, right? And what exactly I mean by money problems, right? But for now, just remember this. You need to know your fears because they are the reason for your bad money habits. And your bad money habits are the reason for your money problems. Again, if you don't think you have money problems, think of it this way. Your bad money habits are the reason for your financial dissatisfaction. Okay? And I'm going to repeat this again, but this is really important to get. If you did not have any fears, you wouldn't have any bad money habits. And if you did not have bad money habits, you would not have any money problems. All right? Bad money habits are here to help you cope with your fears. You only have bad money habits so that you can cope with your fears. But get this, your fears are not real. They're imagined. Fears are imagined. Now, granted, you experience them as fear, and for you, they feel real. Yeah? But they're not real. They're not real. And just, wrapping your head around this is a really good start to start transforming your fears, right? Before we do that, though, let me talk about the main categories of people with money problems. Okay, so um, you may or may not resonate when I say, when I put it out there that if you're here, you must have some money problems, right? You may or may not resonate with that. Okay, so now I'm going to give you the categories, the various categories of people with money problems. Okay, and your job is to figure out which of those categories you personally belong to. So we're going to talk about categories of people with money problems, right? And your job is to figure out where you fit in. Now, I'm also going to talk about the the fears that the different categories of people with money problems experience and their ways of coping with their fears, the bad money habits that they employ to cope with said fears, right? So, the first category of people with money problems. This is the category of the people who usually have plenty of money. They have money. These people have money, or used to have a lot of money, or have money on and off. They handle a lot of money. So these are the people that touch a lot of money, and they have excellent money making abilities and opportunities. All right. And yet, money is never enough. They always have money problems. Here is why. Because they have bad money habits to help them cope with the following fears: fear of pain. Fear of pain can drive a number of destructive money habits. And for people who handle a lot of money and yet money is never enough, these are some of the destructive habits that these people employ to cope with fear of pain. So, they may be numbing themselves to the pain or perceived pain by feeding some addiction. Yeah. And addictions are super expensive, right? They may be avoiding the pain of conflict, so they go with other people's decisions, right? That's a very destructive money habit. Sometimes when other people, when the decisions of other people are just against your financial health, yeah. They may be avoiding the pain of planning for the future, avoiding the pain of saving and investing. So they spend everything they earn and then some immediately. So a lot of money comes in, yeah, and all of it just goes out, right? So that's a very destructive habit that people employ to cope with the fear of pain. Yeah, pain meaning planning for the future, saving, investing, all of these things. Okay. Fear of rejection, right? Fear of rejection can also drive a lot of destructive money habits, right? Like enabling someone else's addictions, buying love by providing for someone else, yeah, or not being able to say no to loved ones or people that you're afraid might reject you in some way. And this, I mean, these are very, very destructive habits that cause money problems. Okay, fear of authenticity, fear of not fitting in. So this fear drives the need to be bigger, better. Yeah. So people often fall into the trap of all sorts of like destructive spendings, like overspending unnecessarily, to keep up with the Joneses and to cope with that fear of authenticity, fear of not being good enough. Okay. So that was the first category of people with money problems. People who actually touch a lot of money, lots of money comes in, and they have good money making abilities and opportunities, and yet money is never enough. They always have, or most of the time they do have, financial problems. Okay. The second category of people with money problems is the category of the people who actually live in genuine lack and poverty. They have very low money making abilities, and very few money making opportunities. And truly, those people just cannot make ends meet, right? So, interestingly enough, the bad money habits that got these people into a state of poverty and led them to a state where they have a lot of money problems, these bad money habits help them cope with similar fears, very similar fears, as the ones I already listed for the rich with the money problems. Okay? So the poor with the money problems are also dealing with fear of pain. Okay? Fear of pain can mean they're not acting, they're being lazy, they're being disorganized, these people refuse to learn new skills, they're inflexible, they cannot adapt to change. Yeah, because change is often associated with pain. Yeah. And, you know, that's costly because these bad money habits, which can be summarized with the term procrastination, lead to poverty and to lots of money problems, right? The fear of pain can also drive a destructive addiction like alcoholism. Okay, quite often we see that alcoholism goes hand in hand with, it just fits in really nicely with this category of people. Okay, fear of failure, yeah, not feeling good enough, suffering extreme low self-esteem, low self-worth. It means these people are, they're not just afraid of not succeeding, they're convinced they're going to fail, so they won't even try. Okay, and that's a very destructive money habit. Not doing anything, just not doing anything, not taking action. Yeah, because of fear of failure, right? Fear of not being good enough. Okay. So the third category of people with money problems is the category of the people that are in a state of codependency. They're waiting for someone else to provide. Now, interestingly, regardless of how well such people are provided for, they still lack the freedom that comes with financial independency. I mean, even if the husband or the wife or the parent, keeps um, if keeps providing for the dependent person, um, they're they're just not free. Yeah. And they're not financially free either, and therefore they have a lot of money problems as well. Now, the possible fears that drive corresponding destructive habits here are again the same fears. Yeah, fear of not being lovable, fear of rejection. So, the fear of rejection is an interesting thing here. Some people that suffer from fear of rejection put themselves in a dependent relationship with a parent or a partner, mostly, yeah, because they associate being taken care of with being loved. Yeah, that's like their proof that they're deserving and that they're lovable, right? Fear of pain is also another, relevant thing here to mention. So avoiding the pain of responsibility, our familiar list of learning new skills, taking responsibility, as we already mentioned that, fear of acting, fear of making mistakes, all of these fears, which I summarize as fear of pain, yeah, drive people into relationships of codependency. Yeah, it means okay, I'm not going to do anything, so I'm going to find someone else to save me. Yeah, and it's a very destructive money habit. It's a very destructive money habit. Yeah. Now, importantly, if you did not identify yourself with any of the three categories above, there is a fourth category that most likely fits you really nicely. And it's the category of the middle class. And the middle class people are best described by the term mediocrity. Mediocrity has you do just fine. Never poor enough to have to beg for food and shelter, but not rich enough to live your passions and dreams. So, in other words, you're doing just mediocre, somewhere in the middle. That's why you belong to the middle class. Yeah. But if you're doing this program, you must be tired of being mediocre and you want to join the fifth category of people. And the fifth category of people is the top 5% who are making enough money for themselves and for others and are happy and fulfilled at the same time. Now, such people, granted, wouldn't come here, so chances are you're not part of that category, but you can be. If you do the work here, that's where you headed. Yeah, that's your predictable future. All right. Now let's go back to the mediocre part of society. That's for those ones of you out there that initially may have thought that you don't have money problems. And granted, you're not like in huge debt and you're not in huge poverty. You're not on either spectrum of the scale. Yeah. You're kind of in the middle and you're thinking, well, I actually don't have money problems. Yeah, you don't have money problems, but you don't have money satisfaction either. Okay. Why? Because you do have some bad money habits that keep you stuck in the middle. Yeah, keep you stuck in that state of mediocrity. And these bad money habits are there to help you cope with exactly the same fears that I already listed for the rich, yeah, for the poor, and the dependent ones. Yeah. So, in other words, we're not that different. What you have is what I have as well. The difference is in the extent to which each person experiences their fears and what coping mechanisms are being employed accordingly, right? So, the coping mechanisms and the fears and the beliefs, as I already said in the beginning, there's something that's programmed to a large extent. Yeah, to some extent, we are born with those things, right? Of course, we learn some patterns, some behaviors, some thinking and feeling reactions, yeah, as we go through life. But we are already born with certain programs that actually determine to a large extent our fears and beliefs and actions that follow. Yeah. So we are going to look at the um, the biological instincts that we are born with, that are hardwired, and how those instincts influence our financial behavior. Yeah. But again, how you do anything is how you do everything. So you are going to get a lot of insight about your behavior in general. But before we do that, though, I want you to again pause the video and um, identify, firstly, if you haven't already, I want you to identify which of the four categories of people with money problems that I just described, which one of those four do you belong to? Answer that question. Well, where am I? Yeah, what is my truth? Yeah. Do I belong to the rich with money problems? Do I belong to the poor with money problems? Do I belong to the codependent, yeah, with money problems? Or am I just a mediocre slash middle class person with seemingly no money problems, but a lot of money dissatisfaction? All right. So that's number one. Write this down. Okay. And number two, write down as many destructive habits that you can personally think of that keep you in that category, and try to identify what fears your destructive habits help you cope with. Okay? So you've got three things. Which of the four categories of people with money problems you belong to? Okay, that's something you need to identify for yourself and write it down. Number two, what are your destructive money habits? And number three, what fears do those destructive habits help you cope with? So once you have written the answers to those questions down, come back and we're going to talk about biological instincts, core values, and how you use money to cope with life based on your biological instinct that's dominant in you. Okay? Right. So I'm assuming you have written down what you were required to do. It is really important to write things down because it helps clarify where exactly you are. And again, I cannot stress this enough. Figuring out where you are is your first coordinate on the map. Yeah. It's the premise for taking a journey towards success. You cannot get to where you want to be if you don't know where you are, if you don't know your starting point, and more importantly, if you don't know why you are where you are and what keeps you stuck. Right, so I'm assuming you've done this. So let's now talk about the biological programs that we are born with and we cannot escape, and we should not try to escape, but we need to transform them. Okay? By and large, well, actually, in a nutshell, there are three main biological drivers that explain your beliefs, fears, and habits. Okay? The three biological instincts are, I already said that in the beginning, the self preservation or survival. That's the first one, survival instinct. The sexual instinct is the second one, and the social instinct is the third instinct. Okay? Now, everybody has all three instincts. Everybody has the drive to survive, the drive to procreate, and the drive to socialize. Every human being on the planet. However, in every one of us, one of those three instincts dominates. It's become dominant for reasons we don't fully understand. And at a very early point, probably at conception already or shortly after conception, certainly by birth, by the time you're born, you already have that tendency towards one of those three instincts uh, um, to be dominant in you. Yeah. So let's give you some more information so that you can identify which one of those three instincts is dominant in you. What is your personal truth here? Yeah. So survival instinct, as I said, is the first instinct. We also call it the instinct for security, safety, or self-preservation, right? If your survival instinct is dominant, it's that means it's over, it's more pronounced, okay, compared to the sexual and the social instinct. If your survival instinct is dominant, you will tend to have survival fears, okay? You will tend to have addiction to pleasure and fear of pain, and pain, I mean literally and metaphorically. You will tend to have fear of intimacy, fear of cooperation, fear of sharing. You're going to tend to be more conservative, more pragmatic, more practically oriented. You're going to want to fly solo mostly. Yeah. You may be preoccupied with food, physical comfort, and safety. You may be a control freak, or you may have obsessive compulsive tendencies. That's if you have the survival instinct dominant in you. If you have the sexual instinct dominant in you, the sexual instinct is not only about the drive to procreate. So don't take the word sexual here literally, or don't take it too literally, because it doesn't only mean that. Yes, it means the drive to procreate, but it also means the instinct to be intimate with another human being. Okay, the instinct to connect with someone else, the instinct to share. Okay, so often the sexual instinct is referred to as the one-on-one instinct. Okay, so it's no longer just about me, which is mostly what the survival instinct is about. Yeah, but now it's about me and the other. Okay, the one-on-one connection, the sharing. So if you have the sexual instinct dominant, you're gonna tend to have fear of rejection, big time. Yeah, jealousy, feelings of abandonment. You're gonna tend to spend money on loved ones, perhaps to control them or buy their love. Okay, or you might be in a relationship where you expect to be taken care of. In contrast, if your social instinct is dominant in you, yeah, you tend to be surrounded by people constantly. Now it's not about me being alone, it's not about me and the other, it's about me and everyone else. Yeah. So it's like people around you most of the time. You belong to groups, organizations. You may compete with others for status, for authority, for respect. Yeah, you prefer to move in packs, and the group is more important to you than the one on one connection, right? So these are the three biological instincts. And I realize I'm repeating myself, but this is really important to get. They're there, and you cannot get rid of them. Yeah. And you can't change them that much, but you can transform them. And that's the next thing I want to talk about now. So now let's, assuming you have identified your dominant instinct based on the brave characteristics I already gave you, um, let me elaborate further regarding the relationship between your dominant instinct and your ways of using money to control your fears. Okay, so we each one of us uses money to control fears based on, we employ different styles of control. Yeah, my style of control is probably different to yours if we happen to have a different dominant instinct. Okay, so let's look at ways in which people use money to control fears based on their dominant instinct. So, assuming your dominant instinct is the survival instinct, all right, let's look at how you might be using money to control your fears, right? Um, you probably want to be alone because it's more difficult to control when others are in the picture. Money is more important to you than love and connection. And money will give you security and safety. So you're likely to control your finances tightly. Yeah. In some cases, over conservatively. And you're likely to not want to share easily. In most cases, you only share when people have earned your generosity. So you might be into meritocracy, I do something, but only in exchange for something else. Yeah. On the positive side, so this is very important. Each dominant instinct has a low side and a high side, right? So on the positive side, if your dominant instinct is the survival instinct, you will be able to accumulate riches and control finances well, in the good sense of the word. Yeah. On the negative side, though, you might become estranged from others, over conservative, you know. You may not be able to experience any pleasure for fear of not being able to survive. Okay? Or you may use money to feed an addictive habit to avoid pain. Because numbing yourself to the pain is a way to survive in a world that, in which you don't feel safe. Remember, survival is all about safety and security. Okay? Now, the cure, if you are finding yourself on the high side of the survival instinct, and assuming survival instinct is what's dominant in you, yeah. If you're finding yourself on the high side of that instinct, congratulations, you have less work to do, right? If you're finding yourself on the low side of that instinct, here is your cure. Trust that you're safe. Number one. Number two, trust other people. And number three, open up to pleasure and cooperation. That is your cure. Okay. Now let's look at how you might use money to control your fears if your dominant instinct is the sexual one. So you are going to be, you're going to want to be with someone else. Yeah, that's what the sexual instinct is about. It's the one-on-one, me and the other. Yeah, and you're going to want to feel connected, intimate, and that may be through a friendship or it may be through a personal partnership, like a love partnership. Yeah, love and connection are more important to you than security, and you're going to use money to buy love, making presents, doing everything for your loved ones, giving, caring, communicating, sharing. You may also expect others to take care of you. So, giving up financial control, for instance, is a way for them to prove to you that they love you. Yeah. Of course, that's very manipulative on your part if you're doing that. Yeah, it's a form of control and manipulation. Yeah. On the positive side, yeah, you're super generous, you're very warm, loving, people come to you, they share, you're helpful. That's on the positive side. And you feel happy about that. Yeah. On the negative side, so if you're finding yourself on the low side of that instinct, you become a doormat. and you gradually grow bitter and resentful because it feels like you're giving everything and still not receiving the love and appreciation that you're after. So if you're trapped in the low side of that instinct, here's your cure. Stop controlling others by buying their love or expecting them to take care of you, including financially. Yeah. That's no proof that they love you. Love yourself first. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to manipulate others into loving you, no matter how much money they spend on you or how much money you spend on them. All right. And lastly, let's look at the social instinct. And if the social instinct is dominant in you, let's look at your ways of using money to control your fears. Yeah. So the group is most important thing. Yeah. For people who have the social instinct as dominant, the group is the most important thing. Yeah. And if that's the case for you, you're gonna use money to fit in and control other people's opinion of you. In other words, money is used for public status, for image, for influence. Now, on the positive side, again, with all is with everything. It's got its good things and bad things. On the positive side, if you have the social instinct dominant, you may become a philanthropist. You may use money to raise social awareness, to do good in the world on a very large scale. On the negative side, you reach your financial demise because of your personal vanity. Okay? So, as you can see, you can do the same thing for a different reason and get a different result. So now I want you to go back and examine your habits, your money habits, yeah, in the light of your dominant instinct. For instance, let's look at like a very simple and very widespread bad money habit, shopping addiction. Yeah. Um, a person with a person who identifies as a self-preservation person or who has the survival instinct as dominant may have the shopping addiction to avoid pain, yeah, to gain some form of security and control. All right. A sexually dominant person may do the same thing to please their partner. Okay. While a socially dominant person may have the same shopping addiction to fit in. Right? So it's the same thing done for a different reason. Okay. Now, why is it important to know the reason for your bad habit? Because your bad habit is only a symptom. It's a symptom, and it's not going to go unless you address the root cause. And how do you address the root cause? It's by becoming aware of the motivation. Becoming aware of the motivation behind your thinking, feeling, acting. Yeah. And this is what you're going to be doing as part of your homework over the next few days, maybe a week or so. Okay? Now, importantly, talking about addressing the root cause, and I'm suggesting here in a way that the root cause for your behavior is biologically wired. Yeah, that at least nature plays a major role, not all of it, is, not all of your behavior is to be blamed on nature, okay? But a large part of it can be put down to the programs that you came here with. And specifically, the one of the three programs that became dominant for reasons that no one really understands, and they're not important to understand for our purpose either. Okay, now importantly, addressing the root cause doesn't mean that, you know if you're if you're sexually dominant, you have the sexual instinct dominant, yeah, you're not necessarily going to all of a sudden become socially dominant because that's better. It's not better, it's just different, right? But the work that you're going to do on yourself is not going to make you socially dominant or, survival. Yeah, but, it doesn't, it's not going to promote the survival instinct all of a sudden. So you turn from being sexually dominant to being survivally dominant. Yeah, that's not so much the aim. Yeah, you will probably remain sexually dominant for the rest of your life, and there's nothing wrong with it. However, remember I talked about a low side and a high side of each instinct. All right, so there's the good and the bad to everything, right? So each instinct having a low side and a high side means you raising your awareness will help you stay more on the high side of the instinct and use this driver, this biological instinct, productively instead of destructively. So that's more the aim here, right? So again, let's take the sexual instinct. And again, this is not only about sex, it's about that one-on-one connection. Yeah. So let's take the sexual instinct, um, and look at a person who has it as their dominant instinct and is trapped on the low side of the instinct. So that means they might use money to control their fear of rejection, to get people's love and attention. By becoming aware of the motivation, yeah, by becoming aware, they will gradually start to move out of this and out of the negative side of the sexually dominant instinct towards the high side of it, right? Which is unconditional love, self-love, generosity, true compassion, intimacy, and connection. Awareness. That's the cure. Awareness. Facing the truth. Facing your personal truth. Figuring out what that is for you. What's keeping you here. Yeah. And how you can overcome this or transform it. Awareness is like light, yeah, and light is very transformational. Light transforms the negative into positive. Okay, it transforms the dark, the dense, into something that's lighter, yeah, clearer, and more positive. So raising awareness is effectively your homework, and I want you to take a few days, maybe a whole week, to work with the material here, because you need to be internalizing it, and you need to have it integrated to a good extent before you move on to the next portion of, of teachings. So throughout this next week, raising awareness is your number one concern, and that means you're going to want to you have to analyze your thoughts, actions, and feelings, and identify how much of them are based on the fears and beliefs you recognized today, right? Now, importantly, put not only your financial thoughts and feelings and actions under examination, examine other areas in your life as well, because of course, how you do anything is how you do everything. Yeah. Now, as soon as you become aware of a limiting belief or fear that's controlling your thoughts, actions, feelings, try to interrupt the pattern immediately by acting differently. Remember it and write this down. This is also in your manual, and I would like you to go through the manual as well. But write it down, because when you write things down, you remember them and you understand them better. Okay? Fear disappears as you take action. Fear disappears as you take action. So don't wait for fear to disappear first to then take action, because that's never going to happen. Act if you want to transcend the fear. So what does that mean? It means very simply that you need to say no if you're usually afraid of saying no, and you need to start saying yes if you're usually afraid of saying yes. Okay? Say no to a person, to an event, to a meeting, to an experience, to a food. Or say yes to learning, to planning, organizing, cleaning, serving, cooperating, reading, being authentic. Feel the fear and do it anyway. And remember that the physical manifestation of fear and excitement in your body is the same. The difference is only in the interpretation. So that means that your body is actually producing the same chemicals, and the same neurophysiological processes are at work. Yeah. Whether you tell yourself you're afraid or excited. So it's up to you to change the narrative and to start telling yourself that you feel excited rather than fearful. Yeah. So that's number one. Number two, remember we talked about destructive money habits, bad money habits. How many of those were you able to identify for yourself? Pick one and start transforming it in the course of the next few days, maybe over the next week. Yeah. And frankly, you know really well what it is that you need to be doing. But knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. So, in terms of transforming a negative, destructive money habit, consider the following options and start taking some steps. You're not going to get it right the first time. That's not the point either. Yeah. The point is to start moving, to give yourself it's a little bit of an initial momentum, and then we're going to build on that. Yeah. And you're going to accelerate your transformation and your ability to reach your financial goal eventually, as we go through this material. But we need to start somewhere, yeah? And so, on the face of it, for this next week, yeah, consider doing one of those things, yeah? I've got a list of suggestions for you. For instance, enlist someone to be accountable to, or book an appointment to get help from a financial planner, for instance. Yeah, these are just suggestions. Some of them may not apply to you at all, others might resonate. Pick one and do something with it. Yeah. Start reading an investment book or invest money and time in education, financial education. Oh, you're here, so you're already doing it, but you can always do more. Yeah. Resolve to stop spending on expensive items, presents to please yourself or others. Yeah. Investigate programs for, to quit smoking, to quit binge eating, to quit drinking. These are very expensive, destructive habits. Yeah. Start a savings plan. Work out a plan to catch up on bills. Yeah. Um, Start paying down your debt. Resolve not to borrow any more money or ask for a pay raise. Pick up the phone and sell your business idea. Create a business idea. Enlist a business partner. All right. And the list goes on and on. The important thing is that you pick one thing that you're stuck on and do something with it. Yeah. Um, Now, importantly, you may think that you need to get more money first to then be able to start paying your bills, paying down your debt, to save, to invest, to leave a dysfunctional relationship and start taking care of yourself, right? But the truth is, you will only ever attract more money if you raise your vibration. And if you're only going to be able to raise your vibration if you commit to a healthy plan of action and start acting. So, on that note, pay an outstanding bill, start reducing your debt, even if that means you need to cut down on your living expenses initially. The action itself will raise your vibration. And with your vibration higher, you're going to be able to attract more money one way or the other. Okay? Move out of your parents' home. Leave a dysfunctional relationship. Yeah? Don't wait to get the money first to then do it because you're never going to get the money to do it. You have to do it to then get more money to survive. That's how the universe works, right? So feel the fear and do it anyway. That's the moral of this story. So give yourself, about a week, work with the material here, follow the advice. And as I already said, you may not get it right the first time. The point is to start somewhere, yeah? Um, and pay attention to where you're stopped. What's stopping you? What are the mechanisms that you're used to resorting to cope? Yeah, by the end of this, week that I'm giving you to digest the material here, you need to emerge with a crystal clear idea about where you are financially, why you are here, and what habits you need to transform fully to get out of this mess. Yeah. And when you have enough information, when you have enough awareness, you can proceed to the next module. And in the next module, I'm going to give you more information and more tools to help you figure out where you need to be and what you need to be striving towards so that you can replace the mess that you're in right now with something better. If you have any questions, you can email me and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.